All right, we are live. Welcome back for another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I know you missed me. I'm your host, Todd Rosales. Folks, I want to apologize for only having one episode last week and the week before. As I was just telling my guest today, we have gotten so much attention on this show that we are booked out 2-3 months in advance with guests. You know, as much as we try to hold everybody to the schedule, these are business owners, these are business leaders, these are very important people. So we can't always make these dates happen, but we do our best to make sure we are bringing you the best folks in the industry in a timely manner whenever we can. And today is no different. So folks, we only have one episode last week, the week before, but they were both very, very solid. If you missed those episodes, of course, you can always find those at youtube.com/elevateyourgrind. And if you don't want to look at my pretty face while you're listening to me, you can find those on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever you find your podcast. Just search for Elevate Your Grind. Folks, we're going to build this community this year, right? You did a great job supporting us through our first year of doing podcasts, over 120 episodes. I can't thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And there are plenty of people that I probably should call out by name. But for those of you who think I should call you out by name and I'm not going to, I don't want to piss you off, so I'm not going to do it, right? But if this show has brought you any value to your life, to your career, to your job, anything at all, please like and subscribe our content. It helps us out a ton. It makes sure that I'm still here to come see you all the time and introduce you to so many great people. Of course, our next event, I don't have a calendar in front of me. I want to say it's March 12th. It's a Thursday. It's the second Thursday in March. We're going to have our next C-Lab virtual event. Rob, I'm sorry. Should have looked at it beforehand. That's on me. We'll definitely update you guys on that tomorrow. But go to joinclab.com. We have the whole calendar of events there, and you can check out whenever we're doing events. They're going to be awesome this year. And folks, if you're in the Florida territory, you're traveling to the Florida territory, we're going to do some socially distanced in-person events. That's right. We want to see your pretty face. So come on down, check out joinclab.com, and let's see you there. Folks, I say folks a lot. We'll catch up on that. But if you pay attention to the show, probably since December, I came across an article by the Motley Fool on the top 10 cannabis markets in the country. I posted it to my LinkedIn, and I was blown away. You know, obviously California number 1, Colorado number 2, those are expected. But then to see the states at 3 and 4, it blew my mind to see Michigan at $1.21 billion with, I think, 800 of that being in medical and 300 being in recreational. And then our lovely state of Florida with only 450,000 patients coming in at $1.2 billion. So on that note, the difference between us and Michigan is they went rec. They changed their model, as most people think, for the better. And, you know, in my day job, I work in the state of Michigan. So I'm very intrigued with this market. I decided that I wanted to start talking to the folks that are on the ground in Michigan because they're building a great marketplace from what I can see from the outside. And I want to learn more about it. And I think it's something that the rest of the country should pay attention to. So on that note, we've got some great entrepreneurs from Michigan. If you remember a few weeks back, we had Ben and Vinny Solani from Highlight Farms talking to us about their business in both California and Michigan. And now we've got another great entrepreneur. And I'm excited to talk to him because he's, to me, remember, I'm talking to the retailers every day there, folks. He's in every store that I talk to and probably a ton more that I don't. So please welcome my guest today, Tim Schuler, the president and COO of DNK Ventures, but that is the parent company of the names you've probably heard of, Detroit Fudge Company and Cannalicious Labs. Tim, thanks for joining me, man.
Todd, I really appreciate you having us on today. What you've done with your podcast is outstanding. I've listened to several episodes, and I love the guy from Cannabis who, you know, I came from Kansas or lived there for a number of years. I know a number of my friends would much prefer to put that in their lip versus tobacco. So it was a nice, interesting segment you had for him.
Yeah, you know, that's actually funny enough. I think I have a can over here somewhere. I still have it. I love it for golf. Case, if you're still watching the show, I know you've been on it. Listen, dude, Pat McAfee is old news. You don't need to sponsor him anymore. Come to Elevate Your Grind, or at least, you know, throw us a bone. I'll throw a lip in every time we start this show, man. Case, so appreciate that, Tim. You reminded me of that when I saw the Barstool flag over your right shoulder there. That Cannabis actually sponsors the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah, great show and a funny man at that. So that's for sure. But thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. So like I said, you know, I've been working in Michigan now for since September, so not a long time, but literally there is not a dispensary I come across that doesn't have your products in it. And it's interesting to me because when I look at the Michigan market, you've got two sets of brands. You've got the California and Colorado brands that are rushing to find their white labelers and bring their products to that state, like they're doing in my state. And then you have folks like yourself, which is a born and bred Michigan company, born and bred Michigan, uh, you know, brand. It's Detroit Fudge is right in your name. Do you think? I mean, would you imagine that's part of your initial success in this market is the fact that you're not this big California company just throwing a bone to a cultivator and giving them a licensing deal and everything else, that you guys are born and bred in Michigan. I feel like there's a lot of pride that comes from that state.
There sure is. And, the name Detroit has a certain amount of, flair and strength to it. People that are from Detroit believe that they're resilient. Detroit Fudge Company actually had been operating under the caregiver model for a number of years. We happened to purchase it from the individuals who ran that company. So we already kind of had a leg up in terms of Detroit Fudge was known. But prior to it getting up and off the ground, we actually have Cannalicious. Cannalicious is a pure processor in every sense of the word. We hydrocarbon extract with propane and butane, as well as ethanol wash. And whatever we produce from there, we either wholesale to all of the dispensaries or provisioning centers here in Michigan. But then we also ship that distillate down to Detroit Fudge to inject it into some of the best delectables in the state. And we're proud of the team we have. We've got 20 some individuals up at Cannalicious and another 20 over at Detroit Fudge that really make this engine hum for us. I just get to be the leader that quarterbacks it right now.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I love the story behind it, and I love the fact that you are a born and bred Michigan company and you have it in your name, and that you're building this brand in your state. I think that's definitely the better story. When it comes to Fudge, I got to ask you a question. I want to talk about Cannalicious too. Is there like a tradition of Fudge in Detroit? I remember when I was doing my due diligence on you, and of course I Googled Detroit Fudge Company, and hundreds of them come up. And I read this article on Mackinac Island, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but like, of this history, this tradition of Fudge. Like, is that part of the reason why you thought that would be an appeal in the edibles category there?
Yeah. So Mackinac Island, and you pronounced it correctly. It's an island right across the bridge up north of Michigan. We've got the Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula, and Mackinac Island just sits right off of it. No vehicles are allowed on the island. And they specialize in Mackinac Fudge, and people in Michigan know the whole state is kind of in love with various types of fudge. It's a very peculiar type product to infuse with cannabis. And we have one of the best cooks in Aubrey in the state. What she is able to spin, nobody feels like they're eating something cannabis related. The taste of it is outstanding. And we not only do a chocolate fudge, but we also do some seasonal fudges. Peppermint fudge was done for Christmas. We did a pumpkin spice fudge around the fall time. We have a Traverse City fudge that's listed to come out here in the spring. And then we also do a Rocky Road fudge with walnuts and marshmallows on it. So we give the Michigan people what they love, and that is fudge.
Hey, I haven't eaten dinner yet, and I'm a little upset with you because I'm starting to get a little hungry here. I think I found your next product, and it should be called follow-up fudge, for after they eat the infused fudge. It's just fudge they can snack on for the rest of the night, because it sounds awesome. What intrigues me about the Michigan model is it was changed recently, right? That there was the caregiver model before, and now your market seems to be exploding. And it's not as mature as California, but it's very reminiscent of the California market, where you don't have forced vertical integration. You have smaller stores. There can be some mom and pop shops as well. You have bigger players, Gage, Skymint. Some of the SPACs are in Michigan too. Can you give us a high level overview of that change? Because the legalization in Michigan is not new. It didn't just happen, but the adult use and changing that model seemed to put a lot of fuel on the fire of your marketplace. So can you just give me a high level overview for the audience of what that change was?
Yeah. So in the past, the caregiver model was that each caregiver that was around could grow and supply up to 6 patients, including themselves. And any extra material they could actually send to a dispensary as an overage. And then those dispensaries were able to sell to people who had a medical card who didn't have the ability to find somebody who could be their caregiver. Well, the state of Michigan had as many as 300,000 licensed cardholders at the time, but each of the individual communities weren't opting in, and there was a lot of, nefarious behavior going on in terms of what was considered, is this a legal act or not? And the governor got ahead of it and actually created a new supply chain, which would be a licensed grower can grow up to 1,500 plants at the time, and he or she could stack those licenses. And then the processor, and you could be both a grower and a processor. But here in Michigan, we also have two other third-party independents. One is a safety and compliance license, where all of our material has to be tested for, microbials, potency, foreign matter, and then foreign matter and objects that are not good for you. So all
Yeah.
of that has to go through that. And then the transporter. So in the state of Michigan, we actually have to use a third party to transport between grower and processor, and then processor and provisioning center. And then the provisioning centers also then had to be licensed both medical and or adult use. And through that, there's 1,483 townships in the state of Michigan. I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of about 400 of them have opted in to allow dispensaries in their location. And some of those have as many as, 50 different licenses. And then there's other communities that'll just allow 2. But the entire supply chain is now fully built out and regulated like it should be in terms of moving a product such as cannabis.
That I like that story too, because to me it just shows that it was a market where legalization had happened. And they took a look at the market, and things weren't going the way that they intended. And instead of trying to fight against it and get rid of it, they said we can make this better. And honestly, with the changes that you just discussed, creating that supply chain, and even requiring third parties to handle the delivery, the end of the day, that to me, that just sounds like a lot more jobs and a lot more opportunities were created in the cannabis space. So you had it where it was kind of the Wild West, a little disorganized, not a ton, very small suppliers, giving their excess. I would say there's not a lot of quality control and everything else there, to an actual formalized industrial supply chain system that creates jobs along every link in the chain. I mean, to me, I look at our state in Florida, and our system is broken, right? We have 22 licenses, 15 to 18 of them are operating. I say that because I don't know how many or how many of those sitting licenses have started coming online. And as much as, yeah, we have every major MSO here in Florida, and they're doing great, they're vertically integrated, and everybody has their good and bad products, but there's no opportunity. There's no opportunity for entrepreneurs, for people to get in at the executive level. That has all been established already. And for the state of Florida, the only thing cannabis is bringing us from a job standpoint is retail jobs. And, I think a state like us could really learn a lesson from what you all did in Michigan and adopt a model similar, or at least take a step back and say, okay, the model that we implemented isn't working. Let's look at other states. Let's see what's going on. And that's why I look at Michigan, and I'm fascinated with the market. And I think you all are benefiting from it because, your first year that you added rec, you did a very big amount of revenue, and you're the number 3 market in the country. So that's incredible. I wish other states will follow, and we may see this as a potential model for federal legalization in the future. I've talked about this on the show, that scares the crap out of me, but I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point in this conversation. So you are no stranger to regulated substances, right? Or regulated industries or anything else. You actually have a pretty deep background in the beer industry and in the alcohol industry. So, that's something that intrigues me now, because when people are hiring for the cannabis space and they're looking for executives, or even when they're looking for employees at any level, it's where can you really compare the experience, right? Because as much as we'd love to just look at everybody on the black market and say, hey, come on in, flip over, we can get this done. There are legalities and regulations that are preventing us from doing that. So where do we look to what industries do we look to find the comparisons? Is it alcohol? Is it CPG? Is it tobacco? Right? And I see benefits of all of them, but I'd really like to understand from your experience the comparison between the alcohol industry and the cannabis industry now that you've been in both.
That's a great question, Todd. I've equated it to many of my friends and even many in our company that the relationship of a three-tier system that the beer companies has in Michigan, at least, and that's my experience of running the state of Michigan for Anheuser-Busch and selling 48 million cases of beer on an annual basis. Dealing with a regulated product is something that we all have to know and understand from a truth in labeling and compliance and taxation, all of those things. But if you look at the grower is the brewer, the processor is the, call it the wholesaler, and then the retailers are the provision centers, we do similarly have a three-tier system. And I think it's like you said, a hybrid of whether it's alcohol, regular CPG, and or beer. We have to be an understanding of, first, our customers are the dispensaries, right? They're the ones that we're actually selling to, but we have to understand their customers so that they can give us the proper feedback to be able to give them the right products at the right price points. And when we talk about price points, forever, cannabis was sold on the zeros, right? An eighth was $15 or $18 or $20. We're trying to move the industry that we are a legitimate product and work on the nines. And, obviously the zeros were used because we didn't have to count back change. There was no taxation. It was easy. And ease is how things happen. But there's a reason you don't want to say that something's $10. $9.99 for whatever reason sounds a lot cheaper. So we need to move forward and be like other CPG companies. Additionally, we have two different brands, and how do two different brands under the same company interact with one another? Cannalicious Labs, we own the color blue at retail. It was something that distinctively said, okay, how do you match things up to what you have? And so that's blue, and Detroit Fudge is red. So we have the ability to differentiate between red and blue at the point of sale. And then we want an understanding that our companies are linked together. So all of our products that we do at Detroit Fudge, we put infused by Cannalicious Labs on them. One, to give it a legitimacy that, it's coming from a lab, it's been tested, it's been under a scope. Not that our Fudge products aren't already tested, but it's kind of that double layer of everything we've produced has been tested at least twice and passed.
That's really cool. I mean, and if you think about it from a marketing standpoint, one brand is advertising the other, and that's, that you can't buy that type of marketing, especially considering everybody who's going to buy Detroit Fudge is going to see that on the packaging. So when it comes to buy a concentrate, it's going to be top of mind, right? What brought you into this industry? I mean, alcohol seems like it's pretty fun. You were telling me you got to deal with NASCAR and everything else. What brought you across the bridge over here?
Obviously opportunities exist wherever we walk in life. And I commend you for all the different entrepreneurs that you get to interview and learn from. And as we walk through life, I'm a 54-year-old man who's learning every day, and I want to be green and growing versus brown and dying. It's a saying my kids know very well. And so I originally partnered up with a guy to start our own transport company here in Michigan. We were one of the first licensed transport companies. And along the way, I met my two partners they had Cannalicious, and they were hoping to bring Detroit Fudge online as soon as it was licensed. And they had a company, but they didn't really have a plan as to how to grow it. And I saw the people that were there, and at the time it was only 8 people. And I saw the passion that they all brought to the table and the knowledge that they had. And I thought that there was something very special as it relates to Cannalicious and potentially Detroit Fudge. And so I met with them. I sold out of my transport company because you can't be in both tiers, and started working for Cannalicious. And then we brought Detroit Fudge online about 6 months later. And we've been tearing it up ever since. And I'm blessed to be surrounded by really good people. And it's it helps to have a mentality of how to build culture. And that's one of the things that I learned in my background, is that people actually are our greatest asset. We hired an HR manager, and I told her we have a 3-pronged strategy. The first is safety. Safety means, not only physical safety of when they will pull in the parking lot, that they don't trip and fall, and that there's, protections around. And we're dealing with propane and butane up at Cannalicious. That needs to be a very safe environment. But also from a mental standpoint, they need to be comfortable in terms of, their everyday interaction with people above them, below them, their co-workers, and we wanted to make it a family-like culture. So if we hit safety as the number one thing, 2, we want to achieve happiness for our employees. And happiness comes in so many different shapes and sizes. Most people say they want to go to work just to make money. But at the end of the day, it's respect. It's a family environment. They spend, 8, 10, 12 hours a day at a facility. They want to be happy. And so what does happiness look like to them? Could it be a increase in wage? Yes. But could it be health benefits? And we're one of the first cannabis companies here in Michigan to offer both health and dental benefits, as well as vision and life insurance to all of our full-time employees. We're really proud of the fact that, we bridge that gap to be a more normalized industry. Does a flexible work schedule work for some people? How do we make everybody's happiness come to fruition? And if we hit safety and if we hit happiness, I think we're going to achieve profitability. So profitability is the next layer of a business. And if you're not making profit, the business goes away. But you have to put safety number 1 and happiness number 2, because if you put profitability number 1, you'll skimp on the second 2. And we don't want to do that with our employees. And, I said we started with 7 employees. Now we're up to 47. So you mentioned giving jobs to people. That's what we want to be able to do.
I'm glad that you structured it that way and talked about it, because I think, it shows the legitimacy of this industry, and I don't think the stigma is as hard as it was 5 or long years ago or longer. I think in today's culture, especially since the pandemic, the stigma is starting to fade. It's still strong, but I think there are a lot of people that look at this industry and they see it as a real industry. There are still plenty that think it's a bunch of, hippies in cargo shorts and Birkenstocks, but hear you talk about that and have the core values of the business and talk about safety and the equipment that you're using and everything else, I think it adds a very big layer of legitimacy to our industry. On that note, I feel like, and maybe I'm stereotyping Detroit here, but I feel like you guys are in a unique position, especially for this industry, because Detroit does have deep roots in blue collar. It has a blue collar reputation. Michigan as a whole does. Growing up around the auto industry, where a lot of people work in factories and work on assembly lines, and maybe those aren't the people that live there today, but certainly had people in their families. So, in today's culture where social media is so predominant and people feel like they have to show off and have this job where they're wearing their nice clothes and going to an office and feel like they need to have this job they can brag about, I feel like the folks in Detroit realize there is a value to going to a factory, working with people that you like, having that happiness, doing something that you love, because there's a quality of life that comes with it, just like you said, where you don't have to kill yourself to try to make a little bit of extra money so you can flash it on Instagram or anything else. Do you feel like the folks that you interview, the folks you hire, and just really the people in the Michigan cannabis market, you have that advantage just because of the history of Michigan?
I completely agree. And, work ethic, I think, is something that's learned. And when you mentioned Detroit and the blue collar type nature of people here, and obviously if you went through an automotive plant today, you see hardworking people, but you see how the evolution of machinery and robotics and all of those things. And we get our work ethic mainly, I think, from who we emulate and who we grew up around. And I'm going to point toward my parents. I saw my dad work 3 to 11 shifts or night shifts or swing shifts my entire, what your parents did for you, you then want to emulate it and do it even better. And then when you ask about interviewing people, it's great to be able to get different people's viewpoints as we bring people on, so that we have a culture of acceptability, that we're not going to have somebody come on just to earn a paycheck. We want them to feel the and almost bleed the brand that we exude to have in the state. And, we're proud of Detroit Fudge and Cannalicious, like you mentioned, they're Michigan brands. Maybe someday we leave Michigan and take this, great mousetrap that we built and take it somewhere else, whether it's Missouri or Oklahoma or Pennsylvania or Florida. So we think we have that ability to replicate.
Well, the Detroit style pizza seems to be all the rage right now. Pizza Hut just came out with it. There's literally, I shit you not. So there is a little breakfast window here down in South Florida. It started as a catering company. It's called Too Fat Cook. I shout them out because I love their food. And then he opened up a breakfast window called Too Fat Breakfast. And when the pandemic hit, they had a very big social media following. It was just a window. They have a massive business now around Detroit style pizza. There's another place, you're familiar with the area, a town up in Boynton Beach, Detroit. It's called Detroit Eats. They've got
Sure.
Detroit style pizza and all Detroit food. So if Detroit style pizza is so big right now, in a few years when we get federal legalization, why can't Detroit Fudge follow right behind it?
I couldn't agree more. And I think that could happen. You mentioned, the way people evolve and understand what takes to run a company. It does go back to what you just said, being able to replicate and do it again and being consistent with your brand.
Yeah. Well, let me ask a question to Tim, the entrepreneur. And I want to circle back to a moment that we had talked about when you got into Detroit Fudge and met your partners, right? And this is something that I want to start doing more on this show, because I do have the ability to access so many entrepreneurs, is start picking your brain and understanding your thought process, right? Because I think people have this, especially people who have never done it before, they have this outside view that folks in your position and bigger in your position, the Elon Musk of the world and entrepreneurs of every level, they have it all together and they think they always make the right decisions and they don't make mistakes. Here you are, you're already started on your journey of this transport company. You have a partner. I'm sure there's some financial investment on your side, and it's something that you're focused on every day. But then all of a sudden, this new opportunity comes into your life and you see a ton of potential with it. I imagine that's a very hard decision, not only for you, but to bring your family in and say, hey, I know that this was the goal and this was the way that we're going through life and this is our path. But I see this other opportunity. And I know we just got started here, but there's bigger potential there. A lot of times people can say that's just a distraction, focus on what you're doing. How do you approach that situation, figure out, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm on my own here. Do I want to keep on the path that I'm going, or do I want to jump over to this new opportunity and focus there? Because I can imagine, as much as I can't imagine that that's a very easy decision in any level of having to make it.
Couldn't agree more. And, one of the things I do is I read, great reader of biographies. And whether it's one of the first I ever read was Lee Iacocca around the auto industry. Thomas Edison's book is incredible. And you think of the hours and the energy and everything that is put forth to do things like that. To be an entrepreneur does not take a very weak, it takes a very strong or fortitude within your stomach to be able to step out of your own comfort zone. Thankfully, I was partnered with a really good friend of mine on the transport business. And when I saw what was happening or what could happen, I went and I sat down with him and I explained what my vision was on what I thought I could do. He looked at me and he said, this is something you've got to do. You've got to push forward on this. He said, I started my own company 10 years ago. And what do I have to do to, change this? You're looking at that and doing the same thing. Now, fortunately for me, a lot of entrepreneurs don't have a great wife like I have. Tomorrow is her 30th anniversary at Ford. And so when you look at somebody that's been at a company that's, one of the top production companies in the world, and she was, honored to be able to produce all those ventilators for FEMA during COVID. So, she had a high level position, but she also had great benefits and we had a great nest egg already built. So it wasn't that risk that everybody says, oh, I plowed every single one of my dimes into it. But having a backbone like her allowed me to go out and make this accepting change in my life. But then it does take, what do the people within the company look like and act like? And what do your partners look like? And how do they how are they able to say yay or nay to, pretty much a stranger in their lives to say, I'm going to turn the keys over to you to let you take this company and go forward. But you go in with a plan, and a plan took me probably 3 months to, come to fruition, to say, okay, this is what we can do. This is how we'll do it. And thankfully they were agreeing to what my vision was. And now we're reaping the benefit of that vision.
That's awesome. I love hearing that story because, as you go through life, even someone like myself, I have the day job, I work on this podcast. There are opportunities that always come my way. And I remember at some point, and not nearly to the point where you are yet, but I was given a pretty sizable side project that I could have worked on. And obviously my day job is the most important. It's where I work, it's where my loyalty is. But it was, what side project did I want to pick? And was it to continue to do this show, which at the time was, you know, it wasn't a financial benefit to me, but it was a networking benefit, or was it to jump on with this other program and help them build that? And I remember thinking to myself, like, maybe that is a distraction. I stayed on the show, and we've built the show, we've built the audience, it's gotten much better. I will say the other opportunity, they're doing much better than I am, but they also had much more of a head start, and I don't regret that decision. It's always interesting to pick people's brains to see why they chose the path that they did. And I hope, I try to promote both entrepreneurship and cannabis on this show. So I hope when people watch, even though this is a cannabis focused podcast on the industry, that you can look at these entrepreneurs, because someone like you, not only are you making these tough decisions, but you're making it in one of the toughest industries in the country to do so, because coming into the job that you're taking, it's not easy to market. It's not easy to reach your customer. It's not easy to operate as a business, because you can't really have bank accounts and things like that. And I know we've harped on this and we don't need to go into all the restrictions, but you're making a conscious effort to not only start your entrepreneurship journey, but to do it in this freaking industry of all others. So, that's why I love talking to folks like yourself on this show, because not only you're doing one of the hardest things there is to do in the world, but you're also doing it in one of the hardest industries in the world. So, congratulations on that. And looking at the comments of this episode already, it looks like you've got a solid team, because they're starting to say, shout out to our fearless leaders. So Chelsea, thank you for watching. I'm sure you know who that is. So,
Well, of course.
so Tim, let's look at the companies now. You had talked, so you have the extraction company, you've got we'll call it the edibles company for lack of a better term, even though it is a confections company.
Correct.
It all starts with Cannalicious. I'm assuming that you guys have a farm or farmers that you partner with, or are you cultivating your own for the extraction? Kind of give us the process without giving too much of the secret sauce.
Sure. So we do not grow ourselves. We actually have great relationships with. I counted today about 19 different growers across the state of Michigan. We purchase a number of different types of product. You can call it, whether it's biomass straight coming from an outdoor grow, indoor grows, whether it's fresh frozen and or sugar leaf trim. And it comes in different potencies, as well as, somebody will call me and say that they have, this great, 60 pounds of trim. And when we get it in, it's not trim, it's hay, so what do we do with it at that point? And, Devin, who's our lead extractor up at Cannalicious, and I call him the Walter White of extraction. He's got an engineering background, but a passion for cannabis. And he's taught me so much in the last, call it 2 years of being around him, that, the excitement and energy that he brings every day, as well as the knowledge. And, you can go buy a hydrocarbon extraction booth, you can go buy an ethanol washing skid, but if you don't have somebody that understands the product going in and the product coming out, as well as being able to troubleshoot when a hose goes down or the butane comes off, or how to handle any of those different things that happen, you're at a big loss. So he understands that and knows it. So without that first initial extraction, we'd be dead in the water in terms of having to get, go buy distillate on the open market. And, distillate last fall got up to as high as $45,000 a liter. We wouldn't have been able to make anything profitable at that point, but thankfully we were on the extraction side, so we could help one company fuel another.
I mean, you guys are doing not full vertical integration, but you've created your own little supply chain between the two companies right there, which I'm sure from a business standpoint is very advantageous. So, Cannalicious, you do your processes, and you have, from what I can tell, almost every single type of extract form that you're putting out there into the market. Live resin, you've got shatter, crumble, diamonds, whatever the kids are calling them these days. It was where so I know that you had Detroit Fudge. I mean, how do the two come to do they do both do pretty well on their own? Are you selling more concentrates? Are you selling more edibles? Because I look at it, I'm not a concentrates guy. And that's why, I make that joke about the kids are calling it these days. I am a flower guy through and through. I look at your edibles and they're very appealing to me, but I know there is a huge, huge market for concentrates, one I'm not a part of. But I imagine that those are doing quite well all over Michigan too.
Well, you use that $1.2 billion of retail revenue that you said in the state of Michigan in 2020. Concentrates make up about 7% of that overall industry. So at 7% of 1.2 million or billion dollars, that's over $100 million in just concentrates alone. And we tend to do quite well on the wholesale side of that. And again, that's the thing with cannabis. There's so many different vehicles for people to, you know, grasp and
Yeah.
use in their lives. And whether it's, flower or pre-rolls or vape carts or concentrates or edibles or tinctures, there's so many different avenues that you can go. We want to dominate the lane we can be in, and that's both concentrates as well as edibles. One of the products that we make that, we're kind of what we consider the Gatorade of our market is Rick Simpson oil, RSO.
Yeah.
Uh, and we really believe that it has a true medical value to it for people who want to use it and use it for as little as pain relief to as high as, cancer suppression and cancer relief. And
Yeah.
we just brought out a new one called Rest RSO, which is a combination of both RSO and CBN. CBN is the cannabis oil that has double the potency of melatonin. And people my age and above have some issues sleeping. So if you can mix in some CBN into a product, it allows people to rest comfortably. And that's the benefits of being in an industry like cannabis. Is there's so many different avenues that you can approach and do. We've told a generation of people not to smoke, and yet 50% of all cannabis is smoked. So we believe the edible side of the business will continue to grow as people who are canna curious continue to move into our industry.
I'm not sure your sleeping issues have anything to do with your age. I would equate them more to your profession and position in the company. But what do I know? I've never ran a business like that. So it's really cool. I mean, it's interesting to me because you're focusing on both sides of the spectrum, right? You had mentioned the kind of curious and so you have extracts, which are to me a lot of times the connoisseurs and the really hardcore cannabis enthusiasts. That's where they're going to. They're going to those concentrates. They're going to the things that they can dab. But then the kind of curious, I mean, like you said, we for 50 years we told people not to smoke. In recent times, we've done a very, very hard push taking smoke out of public places, restaurants, parks, sporting events, and everything else. And that's why, when I look at the future of public consumption, as much as I am a joint smoker, it's not that, right? Because it is. And I was one, when people talk to me about it, I say, I know it's invasive. I know when I spark a joint, everybody around me can smell it. I'm going to smell like it for the next 2 hours. Trust me, my wife lets me know. So you look at things like edibles, and I think for somebody who's never tried cannabis, and whether they're doing it from we'll call it adult use recreational or a true medical or wellness value, that edibles are a great entry into this realm for them, right? You talked about RSO, and RSO is, to me, you're right, it has a lot of true medical benefits. And when we look at what true medical cannabis will be, I definitely think that will fall in that category. But that's also a little foreign to people to put oil directly on things or put it in their mouth or take a bite of it, bite. I don't know what you do with oil, a lick, whatever. But I don't know the correct term for the consumption, but if I had a friend like, hey, you want to try cannabis for the first time, and I came with a piece of your fudge and said, break off a little piece and start with that, I think that's something that they'd be very open to doing. And it does fit the culture and the history, because for the longest time, what food was pot associated with? It was always pot brownies, right? The brownie was the ultimate infused food. So I think it's really interesting for you, because you're focusing on the hardcore connoisseurs as well as the kind of curious, and you don't have that flower piece in the middle. But reality, from a business standpoint, that is a very bloody battle to fight, is who has the best flour. I mean, that's probably the same argument as who has the best pizza, because a pizza has three ingredients. It's very exposed if those are good or bad. With flour, it's a lot of things that can throw you off, with the concentrates, with the edibles. There are a few, you can't really hide bad product, but you can hide a few imperfections along the way because of the processes, right? So from a pure business standpoint, was that part of why you're on both ends of the spectrum? Just because, let's be honest, A, they're higher margin products, and B, it's less of a bloody battle for who's got the best flour, because at the end of the day, that's almost a religious argument.
Uh, I would tell you it's 100%. Our idea is, to own the highest margin piece. But it was really the two types of companies we had. And you mentioned the connoisseur, the concentrate fan, as well as the Canna Curious. We just brought out a new product. Our number one selling edible is Barracuda bars, and we make them in milk, dark chocolate, and mint dark chocolate. And to buy a bar is $20 at the retail location, typically, right? Well, that's 100 milligrams in 520 or 20 rectangles in a Barracuda bar. Well, Bob and our staff at DFC brought out what we're calling a minnow bar, which is what looks like a fun size candy bar size. And it has 4 distinct rectangles, and each one of those rectangles is just 2.5 milligrams. So you have the ability to go up to, Aunt Molly or somebody and say, here, just break off a, 2.5 and try it and see what it does for you. Because every human I've spoken to about edibles, they seem to all have a story that starts with, oh my God, I took way too much. And that's the worst thing that could happen to somebody within our industry, is to have a bad or negative reaction. We would rather have them start slower and gradually move up. And that's with that minnow bar. And then we also brought out a peanut butter and a honey. So you can literally do whatever with those types of products. Elena has experimented with a glazed honey salmon. She drizzled some honey over some avocado toast the other day. There's so many different ways now to ingest cannabis that we think we've literally just stumbled on the very, very start of what we believe is a great category to grow.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And as much as I want to talk a little bit more about Cannalicious, I mean, you've got some great products there, but looking at the lineup for Detroit Fudge, I mean, infused or not, everything looks absolutely amazing. And yeah, I think it's very interesting that you do have so many options between the fudge and the honey and the peanut butter, that you really could make this part of a wellness routine, is having this cannabis, measuring out, figuring out what your proper dosage is, and including it in your actual diet with these ingredients at this point, right? It's not just canna butter and distillate anymore. It's actual honey and peanut butter. And I saw that on your website. You had the honey glazed salmon. I read an article, there was also a honey glazed chicken. I mean, that could easily be the future of consumption, of public consumption. And I think that's really cool that everybody kind of has those options to pick what they want. Um, Dude, I mean, looking at these products, where are your favorite products? Because I mean, I'm looking at this and the lineup is incredible. The Rocky Road fudge, the pumpkin spice. I'm not a peppermint guy, but even the honey and the peanut butter look great. Maybe I would be a peppermint if it was infused, because I don't have to eat a lot of it. It's just one bite, but I am not a mint chocolate person.
Yeah, you don't have to eat a lot to get the desired effect. But from where we stand, we think the honey and peanut butter, because how many different ways can you ingest honey? Whether it's in a cup of tea before you go to bed to rest a little easier. Do you put it on a cracker before you run out the door? Do you make a, honey glazed chicken or a honey glazed salmon for a dinner party? I use the example all the time. If we're invited over to another couple's house, Tammy and I will bring a bottle of wine. We're not bringing a bottle of wine to get them drunk, right?
Yeah.
One, it's a gift to them, but two, if they open it up, it's to relax and enjoy, right? Well, why can't we bring honey into those types of situations? Or, do we bring a plate of fudge for them and, there's 10 people there and we all have a little bit? It's to get relaxed. It's not truly that whole moniker of, oh my God, I'm bringing cannabis. Everybody at the party is going to be stoned. That's not the need at all. And if you look at the demographics of 45 to 95, the ability to approach those individuals who have not chosen to use cannabis, but now have expendable income and in a time in their life that they can experiment with something different. I was with good friends the other night and he just told me, he goes, I'm done drinking. He goes, I literally can't drink and not feel bad the next morning. And I know it's terrible on my liver. Your liver has nothing to do with cannabis. So you're not destroying that aspect of it. And he also said, at our age, I get up in the middle of the night and have to pee twice. I don't like that. And so there's so many other benefits that we need to just keep talking about what cannabis can do for people and why it can be a mainstream used product.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, and if you look at the consumption of alcohol, right? Like nobody's ever really consumed cannabis and took that wrong left turn to Angryville, right? At most, maybe you pass out, maybe you eat too much and you're angry at yourself the next morning. But other than that, and that's only if you overindulge that you really get that feeling. So, I agree. I love the normalization of it. I had two women on the show from the hospitality group, and they're very big on consumption lounges and what that's going to look like in the future. And, I think we do need to talk more about group and public cannabis consumption and at parties and things like that. And, on your point of talking about the minnow bar you brought up, I meant to say this before, I lost my thought, which is why there was some rambling there, is I wouldn't call myself a cannabis connoisseur by any stretch of the imagination, but I am a regular user, right? I'm not a snob in the sense that it has to be the best and this and that and the other, but I like good stuff. However, I'm going down an opposite path where these microdose products and these lower level THC products are very appealing to me because back in college, I did the smoke as many joints as I can, or hit the gravity bong and go to the moon so I can watch Super Troopers. But that's not necessarily always what I want to do anymore. I also binge drink in college too. So to have a little bit of THC or of an edible or of something like that to just kind of take the edge off. And when you take the edge off with this, it's a lot different. You're not peeing every 2 seconds and everything else. That's very appealing to me. And I can't imagine that I'm the only regular user that's in that boat that also wants to look at how can I microdose this a little bit and kind of have a little bit of that good feeling when I need to and not go all the way to where I used to go in college. So do you see a big future for microdosing, not only for the kind of curious, but also for the regular users as well?
Yeah, for sure. And as studies will continue to evolve, and obviously the wall is going to get knocked down federally and allow a lot of different universities to start studying different habits and what it can do for people. But take our guppies that I sent to you this afternoon. That's a combination of both THC and CBN.
Yeah.
So does the person that wants to just be able to take one of those an hour before bed and be able to rest comfortably at night, that might change people's lives, whether it's a 30-year-old individual or a 70-year-old woman who just got through surgery and wants to, be able to sleep and rest comfortably. So we have so much more that we can do from a true educating the consumer standpoint. And it's going to take us a while to continue to evolve as an industry, but we need to worry about how to approach people who are not familiar with us versus just worrying about those, like you call those concentrate, the snobs or the connoisseurs of the industry. that we take care of with Cannalicious, but how do we be friendly and more approachable on the Detroit Fudge side?
Yeah, I'm in that boat. Listen, I love the connoisseurs and the advocates and everybody who got us here. It's amazing. Thank you. Your industry, I don't want to say it's here, but in a lot of places it is. And people are very focused on the products that you like. I am very curious to see how we bring the rest of the country, the rest of the world into our circle and expose them to our way of life as cannabis consumers, or Steve D'Angelo calls us the tribe, right? Because I think a lot more people should be using it. And I think there are a lot of benefits to it. And I love that you guys are coming out with these products. So on that note, as we look towards the future, as hopefully the world starts to open back up this year, what are some of the things that you expect and what are you excited about for just our industry, and then specifically some of the things that you guys are working on that you're able to share?
Well, one of the big things that we're excited about is we just signed on with a partnership with Ease, and Ease obviously is a big home delivery company on the West Coast in California. They're the largest retailer now of cannabis in California. They're going to make an entry into Michigan, and we've partnered with them to not only just be on their platform, but we also have a retail arm in Ann Arbor that they will be the distributor, or will be their depot for them to be home delivery. And you mentioned pizza earlier. What other two normal things do you get delivered? Pizza and cannabis. And we think that's going to help. COVID obviously has accelerated that with the amount of, whether it's DoorDash or Uber Eats or just restaurants having to deliver. And then we were deemed essential here in Michigan, and we were able to do curbside. So again, it allowed people to continue the fueling of understanding that cannabis is a legitimate product here. Now we have to continue to go find more people to bring them into what you called the fold, so to speak. I mentioned 300,000 cardholders here in Michigan at one point prior to this new supply chain. There's 7 million 21 and over adults here. I would rather fish in that pond than the 300,000 person pond. And quite frankly, you continue to find white space or voids in the industry that you can exploit for our own benefit. And that's what we're going to do. And thankfully, we got a good team out there that's peppering me with ideas all the time. My controller thinks he's a marketing guy, and I got to slow him down from time to time.
Well, do me a favor. We talked about pizza a few times. Stay away from infused marinara sauce, because when it comes to pizza, I have no self-control and I will absolutely overindulge. And if you do get into it, I can't visit you. So, let's leave that one sacred. But I really enjoyed the conversation. I think what you guys are doing out there is incredible. You're in, last I read, 88% of the provisioning centers in Michigan. You said when you can get more product out there, you'll be in 100. So you've done something right. Congratulations. Before we let you go, let's get all the promos out there. Where can people find you? Where can they find the product? Anything you want to promote or shout out? Let's do it.
Well, first I want to give a shout out to my team. And Elena's, set this up with you, and she found your podcast. So I really appreciate what she's done. Chelsea is our social media manager up in at Cannalicious. So, everything that you see coming out on the Instagram from our standpoint or Facebook comes from her. So they do a wonderful job, and we're just surrounded by good people. And then our products, you can find them, like you said, at 88% of the stores out there. We don't want to single out any one retailer because, quite frankly, we love them all. And, whether it's from Adrian, Michigan, all the way up to the UP, over to Niles, to the Detroit hub itself in the Tri-County area here. We know that when you pick up a Detroit Fudge or a Cannalicious product, it's been made with the highest standards. And it's a motto that Elena knows, Chelsea knows, everybody at our organization knows that everything we do has the highest standards. Now, it's a double entendre, right? The highest standard. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that quality is what we do and how we are represented. And it's served us very well with, relationships like what I said with 18 or 19 different growers, as well as, nearly 300 retailers across the state. And that's a big thing for us. So if I were going to promote anybody, it would be our team. And from there, our products will sell themselves.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it sounds like a great place to work. It sounds like you have a hell of a culture. And We will do this again. I need to get up to Michigan. I will be
Please.
doing a tour of the state. So I'll absolutely knock on your door. I have this burning desire now to leverage to make a smoothie with your peanut butter. I'm not joking. Like, that's all I've been thinking about since I saw it. I drink a smoothie every morning with peanut butter in it, and I think this would be a great addition. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that when I get up there.
There you go. And a bit of advice to you. You got Mackenzie, what, 16 months old? Read to her
Yep.
every day you can, because at some point she won't want to sit on your lap. And best of luck with your the upcoming baby in June as well.
Thank you very much. And I have taken that advice to heart. I think I read her like 10 books a day easily. She's a bookworm. So luckily she didn't get that from me. So hopefully that sticks.
Well, congratulations on your show, Todd. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's been a pleasure having you. We'll definitely have you back. And thank you to everybody at home. This has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. Of course, if you missed any part of this episode, you can always catch it on our YouTube at youtube.com/elevate your grind. It'll be live there on Monday around 10 o'clock-ish. I don't know. Give us some time. We like to sleep in late, but youtube.com/elevate your grind. This episode will be live there. Of course, folks, we've got the C-Lab events coming up. Again, they're going to be here on a regular basis. Go to joinclab.com. And if you want to listen to the audio version of this show, any platform where you get your podcasts, including the ones where you listen to Joe Rogan and the Adam Carolla show and all the mainstream ones, just Google Elevate Your Grind. Listen to us on your drive to or from work, on your lunch break, whenever you can. We really appreciate it. Like and subscribe. We are going to build a massive community this year, and we want you to be a part of it. Folks, we are done for the week. We'll be right here again next week. Please join us on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern right here at facebook.com/Cannabis Group, where we'll have our guest, Andrew, I butchered his name, Andrew D'Angelo. I'm very excited to talk to him, folks. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you next week.